This video discusses some of the ways issues of class figure in the Miller's Prologue. Let me begin by stressing how the word class did not exist in Middle English. The closest words to class back then would have been estate, think for example of the three estates, or rank. As I've mentioned, Millers during Chaucer's time were icons of rebellion, and our Miller is no exception. He makes his appearance in the tale-telling game early on, right after the knight has finished telling his tale. A tale that all the pilgrims acknowledge is a noble storia, a noble story. Harry Bailey, as the master of ceremonies, then steps in to ask who will tell the next tale. Harry turns to the monk, who is the second highest ranking pilgrim on the pilgrimage after the knight. Harry says, "Nu telleth ye, Sir Monk, if that ye con, somewhat to queet with the connectis tala." Queet is a very important word in Middle English. It has many meanings, including match. The implication here is that the monk will be able to sustain the high narrative precedent set by the knight, given his high-class status. But Chaucer tells us that the miller, that for drunken was all pala, so that unnethe upon his horse he sat, he nolde violin neither hood ne hat, ne abide no man for his courtesia, but in Pilates voice he gan to cria, and swore, "Be arms and be blood and bones, I can a noble tale for the nonnes, with which I will nu queet the connectis tala." The inebriated Miller interrupts Harry to proclaim, "I can a noble tale, I can tell a noble story, one that will queet the knight's tale." This is an outrageous move, since the miller is a peasant and a very low-ranking pilgrim. We might say it's an aggressive move too, since queet doesn't just mean match or repay, but also avenge. Please ask yourself as you read the miller's performance how it might function as an attack on the knight as an aristocrat. Harry tries to stop the miller, saying, "Abide, Robin." Robin is the name of the miller. "Some better man shall tell the next tale." But Robin won't be stopped. Harry agrees to let the miller tell the next tale, but this is hardly the only disruption that occurs in Robin the Miller's prologue. Soon Robin upsets another pilgrim, a fellow peasant, the reeve. Robin upsets the reeve when he describes the kind of tale he plans on telling, in lines 31-41 and following. The miller describes how his tale will concern a carpenter, his wife, and a clerk who makes a fool of the husband, the carpenter. In other words, the miller's tale concerns a student who sleeps with the wife of a carpenter. Reeves were farm managers, but they also had associations with carpenters, and this is why the reeve gets upset about the miller's choice of tale. He thinks that the miller is stating that the reeve's wife is cheating on him. Let's pause and think about this tension in the context of the Peasants' Rebellion of 1381. That revolt involved peasants getting together to reject their subservient positioning in England. Interestingly, Chaucer portrays two peasants who, far from joining forces, don't get along. Why might Chaucer represent peasant friction and rivalry in the Canterbury Tales? I'm going to leave that question open for now and instead return to what has so upset the reeve, the implication that his wife is cheating on him. The technical term is that the reeve is a cuckold. This was a serious charge in medieval England. To get a sense of why cuckoldry was so upsetting, let's add gender to the dualisms that often organized medieval English society. You might want to pause the video and jot all of these binaries down. They might come in handy later as you read the tale and work on your close reading. Medieval culture was very misogynistic. Women, like peasants, were thought to be inherently connected to the body and to animals, and to lack the relationship to humanity and reason that men enjoyed. According to this way of interpreting the world, thanks to their essential animality and their embodiment, women should be governed by men in the same way that the head should govern the body, a knight should govern his horse, and the king should govern the peasants. Okay, now let's get back to adultery. Adultery was a very common practice in the Middle Ages. Literary texts sympathize with the plight of unhappy wives, and especially wives who are in loveless unions with older men. But at the same time, evidence from law courts demonstrate that fights, spousal abuse, and even murder could arise out of a man's fear that his wife was an adulteress, or from an accusation of cuckoldry being leveled by another man. Since a proper man should control and dominate his wife, an adulterous woman undermines the masculinity of her husband. Another crucial reason why adultery by women was especially disturbing was the manner in which he could query the legitimacy of a man's children. For these reasons and others, the Reeve, whose name we learn is Oswald, has many reasons to be upset at the miller and insist that Robin tell a different tale. But Robin refuses and instead offers the Reeve a philosophy of life when it comes to a man and his wife. "We are too angry with me tal nu. I have a wife parday as well as thou. Yet nul dee, for the oxen in me plew, talk upon me more than enough, as daemon of meself that I were on. I will believe well that I am none. And us bond shall not ben inquisitive of God's privité, nor of his wife. So hae my funda, God is foison there, of the remnant needeth not inquire." Please pause the video and reread these lines to yourself and try to translate them. In many respects, the miller's words here offer a hermeneutic for his tale. Hermeneutic is a good word to learn as an English major, since it refers to the primary activity that an English major performs, interpretation. Here I'm using hermeneutic as a noun. By claiming that the miller's words here offer a hermeneutic for his tale, I mean that they offer an interpretive key to the tale. So what is the miller saying here? First, I'll translate the first 5 lines. Let me repeat them once more in Middle English. "We are too angry with me tool nu." Why are you angry with my tale, Oswald? "I have a wife parday as well as thou." I have a wife just like you do. "Yet nuldi, yet would I not. For the oxen in me plew, for all of the oxen in my plow. Talk upon me more than enough, as daemon of meself that I were on." These are tough lines. I would translate them as, Oswald, for all the oxen in my plow, I would not go so far as to believe that I am a cuckold. In the next line, the miller states, "I will believe well that I am none." In other words, I choose to believe that I am not a cuckold. Robin is embracing a stance of willful ignorance. Ignorance, according to the miller, is bliss. So let's get back to the dualisms associated with peasants. Ignorance is a trait typically associated with the peasantry, given their association with the body and animals. Let's recall Walsingham's Chronicle, which suggests that the rebels don't even know how to speak. Knowledge, on the other hand, is a trait typically associated with higher-ranking members of medieval society, learned people, like a clerk or a monk. While usually the association of peasants with ignorance, that is, an absence of knowledge, is a bad thing, here the miller takes that trait and celebrates it. When it comes to one's wife's sexual activity, Robin affirms, ignorance is a good thing. It's the way to go. Like I said, this passage offers a hermeneutic for the miller's tale. I mean this in a general way, insofar as we see the miller take a peasant trait that is usually used to put down peasants and transform it into something worth celebrating. I also mean this in a specific way. That is, these lines comment on moments in the miller's tale that pertain to knowledge versus ignorance. The final lines of the passage are especially fascinating. I'm going to return to them later in the video lecture about medieval gender. For now, I am going to help you translate them by providing you with the meaning of a key Middle English word, privité. Here are two meanings from the Middle English Dictionary. The first definition foregrounds privacy and secrecy, but also includes a person's privates, so to speak, that is, one's sex organs. The second definition swerves in a radically different direction and defines privité as a sacred mystery or divine secret. I'll end by reading these lines one more time, and I invite you to translate them, unpack them, and possibly mull them over in your discussion section. "And whose bond shall not ben inquisitif of God's privité, nor of his wife. So hae my funde God's voice on there, of the remanent, needeth not inquire."